Hey, welcome to the stream. Hopefully the mic is loud enough. It's been very quiet the last few times. I think I'm just getting things tweaked and set up. Yeah, so I can see I'm streaming. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Got a runny nose, so I'll be sniffing a lot. The Hello Drunk World series, yes. I've yet to name or call this something. But yeah, so this installment, I'm going to be looking at Remotion. It's a really cool library written by a guy, Johnny Berger. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He recently released this thing, Remotion, and it allows you to create and build and generate videos using just React code, which I think is pretty cool. As a React developer, I don't call myself a React developer, as a JavaScript developer, being able to use tools to generate videos is exciting. It takes you out of the kind of traditional movie creation ecosystem, I want to say, where you need to use complex tools to be able to generate videos on the fly or do fun editing magic, whatever. It's also a really cheap way to do this because everything you're building and using is free, open source. I think his stuff's open source. Yeah, free and open source. Like, you can manage it whatever way you want. So, first things first, let's get our pour on. So we've got a Cruiser's Heritage something. A lot of languages I can't read. So let's get our wine ASMR on. I will pronounce that correctly at some point. I'm on the last of the little bottles. I got out of the 6x Nico wine selection pack. It's not terrible, we'll say that. So, further ado, let's get into this. So we got everything set up and going. I'm using my keyboard shortcuts. I've got multiple screens. Let's see how this goes. So, first things off, let's look at Remotion. This is the kind of the getting started landing page. Looks pretty cool. I like the fact as well it's auto coded the dark and light mode. So as I said, it's a tool that allows you to generate videos by just writing React code. So you can use React, HTML /JSX, CSS, Sass, custom fonts, images, whatever you would be doing to generate an immersive, fluent web experience, you can do with Remotion. So if we jump straight into the docs, we can see here, first things first is get created is to run your create video or your npm init video. I've obviously ran this already, installed all the dependencies, everything that we would need to get going on this. Once you ran that, you're kind of set up with a little starter kit, which is actually really cool because it kind of gives you ideas and then we springboard to jump off. So we clear this out and run it. So just npm start will get this running for us. And then really cool as well, so we have this browser based kind of debugging experience. I would almost kind of liken it to, called the Remotion player. And it works as a little kind of media player where you can watch parts of your videos back. So if we're in here and we hit the space bar, it'll start playing this video, which is really cool out of the box. But you can also pause and scrub through. You can change the size of the video depending on the resolution. So I think fit the resolution that I have at the minute is pretty good. I think that's full screen as well. But this is where it kind of gets interesting. So you can see it's built up of multiple parts. So we have our logo, and then we have a title, and then we have a subtitle. And you can then also select those individual items on their own and play them on their own as well. So we then look at the title, and then our full experience. It's weird that the subtitle doesn't show up as one of these. We can't really right click or do anything on them. Well, I can zoom in, but that doesn't make sense. But yeah, like this kind of like on initial inspection, this looks just like I'm playing a video in the browser. You know, where's the magic going on here? But what if we right click on this? Inspect element. And we bump up. So this is just HTML. Like we can dig into the different parts, so we can see, you know, this is our, you know, image that's being scrolled. So if we scrub through, we'll see these values should be changing. So this is like applying on the fly transitions and doing stuff with this, which is pretty interesting and cool. So if we follow through the documentation, we can see like, you know, we've got the fundamentals. This goes through the different kind of tools and things that are built and set up that we can use, but you can look through this yourself. Let's just jump in and let's like try and understand what's going on based on the tutorial doc, or just like the kind of starter kit that's given to us, and then build our own version of the Hello World example. And then from that, we're going to try and recreate the Star Wars intro text, like the whole scroll in text, and see where we can go from there. So let's dive right in. Let's get a drink first. Remember, if you're watching along live, comment in the chat, give me advice and help. You know where I'm gonna, when the wine starts kicking in, I'm gonna be messing things up. So let's bring up our IDE. So this is just the default starter kit that they give us. And we have like our normal README. So under source, we have a Hello World directory, Hello World, and as well, I didn't mention this as well. This is kind of out of the box, supports TypeScript, which is really cool. I've been trying to get into TypeScript this year and use it as much as possible in these little side projects without getting bogged down in TypeScript. Like Hello Drunk World is about making something quick and fast and potentially rough and ready and dirty. But I want to kind of dabble in a bit of TypeScript too. So I'm, you know, from what I understand, what I know from previous things, index is probably going to be the main entry point. So you see here, we have a register root from Remotion, and then we have a video that gets imported from a video file, and then we call register root. So this is kind of like, if you'd liken this to a React DOM render method, where like, you know, you're rendering the index of your application. So we can dig into this a little bit more. So first, let's clean up my IDE a bit. So that's a core library. We don't really care about that too much. I can assume that that is just saying this is where we start rendering our video from. So let's take a look at this Remotion video component that's been exported out. So I'm gonna make my terminal a little bit smaller. So just bring this down full. So we don't need our terminal, because the terminal is going to be running in the background constantly. So what do we have here? We have a couple of imports. We'll ignore those for now. We have a React functional component. We can tell by our TypeScript definitions, and then we have a couple of composition components. So if we keep open the Remotion player, we can use this as a kind of guide to see what's going on and how we can then start hacking away and building our own stuff. So we can see like composition, Hello World, logo, and title. I think that kind of corresponds to these sections on the left. And it looks to be Hello World is like your full video, and then these other compositions are just like if you want to isolate out a composition. So I think that composition is going to be like the fully fledged video whenever you export out. So whatever like the main or first one is. So what happens if we comment these out? Let me save this. Yeah, so they disappear. So for clarity's sake, let's get rid of this, because I only care about like having one main track. We're not going to be debugging into things yet. And then we can look at the props in this composition. So composition is a component that comes from Remotion, and it allows you to, I guess, compose what your video is going to be like. It takes an ID, a component called hello world, which we'll dig into in a second. And then duration in frames, which I assume is, how long we want the video to be in frames. And then we can say frames per second, so 30 frames per second. Which I guess I'm not a video expert, so I'm going to get lost in the whole frames per second kind of thing. But I guess if I say, we have 150 frames and there's 30 frames per second, so 150 divided by 30, if that's right. So the video is going to be 5 seconds long. 2, 3, 4, 5. I counted fast at the start. But yeah, I think we could safe to say that's, a 5 second video. Yeah, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi. So yeah, we've got a 5 second video clip. We can set a width and a height. I find this interesting because for me, like, videos are kind of like responsive almost, like they stretch and fit. But I wonder if is that like the media player that makes it responsive so it can fit the screen, and then the pixels just kind of scale up and down. If we made this 100 by 100 and played it on a 4K screen, it would probably look terrible. And then this is interesting, we have like default props. So I think we're going to figure out more about those as we go. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to jump into this hello world component. So there's a lot going on here. Again, functional component. We've typed out our props, which are title text and title color. And if we look, they come from our default props. So that looks how we can pass props into our component that's being used in our composition. And then we look to be using some hooks. So use current frame, use video config. Use current frame sounds self-explanatory. From skimming, that's what I'm looking for, skimming over the docs. Use current frame allows you to get what the current frame is in the video, because from my understanding is your components are re-rendered. Similar to like, React components in the browser are like re-rendered every time there is like interaction with the data that the props or whatever gets passed to it. So in this case, Remotion is re-rendering every time a frame changes. So now we can get the frame count. So even if we try and do something here, I guess we could console log this because we've got our depths up. So if I say console, I got the spell, console.log frame, and then we're going to pass in our frame value. So we save this and then go over to our console. So we can, as we scrub through, so that's loading our frames. If we bring this back to the very start and then hit play, so we can see our frames being printed out, and it should go up to 150. And it loops over again. So thank you, Fair Play Lad, for the follow. So we can see it's re-render component every time we get a new frame. I think the thought process behind this is so as the frames in the video go on, we can then how's it going, Adam? So as the frames are going on, we can react to react to that based on where we know we are in the video. So we've got this interpolate, which we're going to ignore for now because that sounds looks a little bit crazy. We can dig in that soon. This is where it kind of gets interesting. So we have these sequence components. So we have a sequence component, and then for the child component, you can pass your own component. These allow you to control where and when in the video things are going to appear. So as we can see in our story timeline along the bottom, our logo comes in for a bit, and then our title comes in, and then that goes place for a bit, and then our subtitle comes in. So this is controlled by the sequence, so we can tell when this part of the video starts playing, and we can then also say how long it should play for. So you can see it's controlled by like from. So we want our logo to come in at the very beginning. Then we want our title to come in at, so it has this transition start equals 25. And now the transition start doesn't actually change. So, you know, again, it's saying like, no, this is like when we want shit to happen afterwards. So we're saying after 25 frames plus 10, we bring in the title, and then after 25 frames plus 50, we bring in the subtitle. So like if I put these all to 0, and then save that, we can see these all play at the same time. So you get a little bit of a different video. Yes, so actually you can see why they have that transition time, because the main kind of React logo begins low and then moves up. So at this point here is, like, yeah, we're looking at 25 plus 10 is 35. So with frame 35, it's up at its highest point, and that's why we wanted to start at that point. So, kind of picking up bits and pieces, we can create our sequences, we save this and refresh. And then interesting as well, we can say, you know, how long it should play for. This uses the video config, so let's start logging out what our video config is. And it's going to be video config. Now, because we're using TypeScript, we can dig into what video config is, because it's going to be obviously fully typed. So we can see it is a video config type, which has width, height, frames per second, and duration in frames. I think I'm going to make this an object. So let's jump back in here again and clear our log. Let's play for a little bit. Object. Oh, didn't want to do that. Trying to be smart and use template literals. So in this case, we're going to actually say, and use a normal console log. Yep, save that. So let's see what our video in frame is. Yeah. So we grab this. It's going to always tell us what the width and height of the video is. I'm wondering, the usefulness could be around, you know, reacting to the video changing in size potentially. Frames per second seems to be a constant that doesn't really change throughout your video. Height, or sorry, we went through that. And then duration of frames tells you, like, you know, the total amount of time that your video has. So I guess in this example, you can say, like, well, this is going to be the duration of frames of the full video, or just put it to infinity so it'll last the entirety of the video. Then if we jump into, so if we look at our title, it kind of prints out these 3 words and they zoom in. So there's obviously something going on here that's controlling that kind of interaction. I would look at the logo, but the logo, I think, is just going to be a shit ton of really complicated stuff that I don't know much about. Like, what the fuck is an arc component? I'm not a CSS animations person, so we'll ignore that. Let's jump into title. Then title takes in those original props that we passed in at the top. So let's jump in and change them. I'm going to say, hello, drunk world, and we're going to go, so color, I have a feeling this is going to be passed in as a style prop. Title color, can we do font color gradient? Yeah, CSS text gradient. Let's see if we can apply that. I'm going to create a blah, 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 blah. I don't care. Might be more styling, because this is all inline style. So fuck, we're just going to change this to, if in doubt, red. So we can see it automatically changing. So now we have hello drunk world. So let's take a look at what our title component does. Takes in our title text, our title color, calls those hooks again, so we must be using those values to do something. Applies a load of kind of default styles, and then this is kind of interesting. So it's mapping over the text, and breaking, like mapping over the text and breaking it into like word by word, and then it's going to like render each word in a different way, and it's using the CSS transform, but it's using the scale function and then using the spring utility function from Remotion. So Remotion, like handily, I guess, provides a couple of different like helper functions that allow you to like style based on the current frame, how many frames you have per second, and like how long you want the animation to go on for. So, you know, the interpolate helper is what we've seen in an earlier component. You give it the current frame, you give it a range, like an input range and an output range. So in this kind of case, and we are using it here in Hello World, where we have the opacity. So what we're saying here is every time this reruns, pass in the current frame that we're on, give it the input range. So our duration frames minus 25 and our duration in frames minus 15. So that's our input range. So like where we want to build out our like, it'll become clear when I get on the next one. So output range is 1 and 0. That is the range for CSS opacity. So you can go from 1 to 0 or 0 to 1. And what we're saying is we want to spread that out over a wider range. So if you think about it, like if I wanted to say for my video's 300 long and I want to go from 0 to 1, Interpolate is going to calculate for each frame what the opacity value will be. So again, let's log this out. And we'll get to see what the opacity value is each time. So clear this, bring it back to the start. So opacity is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, constantly 1. And then it drops down, yeah. So we're saying start at 1 and then go down at the end. So if I can pause this, so we can go down. So that's at 0. We start bringing this up, yeah. And it's given us those values, so we can say like, here's my range, here's the range of what's acceptable for that property. Calculate, you know, even breaks in between that, and then it'll work for us. So that's what the interpolate kind of helper is for. But we go back to our title. So another one we're using here is Spring. So then it kind of follows the same principle where you give it the frames per second, you give it the current frame, and you can give it a config, and it'll then generate you like a value that can then be applied to CSS to then, you know, smoothly animate that. So like that's what's controlling the whole ability to like, you know, make the words, you know, transform as like grow big. So that's kind of cool. Let's throw this all away and try and see, can we just like quickly build an example that just like writes the text hello world and nothing else. So we could probably work off this hello world component. So I'm gonna keep the interpolate because I like the opacity where it fades out at the end. And we're gonna keep these sequences, but we're gonna create our own components in here. So I'm gonna say const hello equals return h1 this is going to be crappy looking, but hello drunk so, and the beauty is like we can add as many sequences as we want, and we control when they appear. So this is going to be a hello world, hello. copy that and put it in there. Let's copy this and fire it in again and get rid of that empty one. So I want to say that starts from 0. That starts from, so we have 150 frames. So that starts from 0, that starts 10, that starts at 20. Let's see how this looks. Hello, drunk. Well, oh, I put in drunk twice. So obviously that kind of looks crap because we haven't styled or done anything with them. Like they're layering on top of each other. So we could probably add in inline style. Seems to be the quickest and dirtiest way to do this. So we're going to say style. We're going to say font size. Yeah, font size 500 pixel. And can we do anything else? Well, what we actually, yeah, so I'm going to make all these a little bit different size first, and then we're going to, because this is React and it's technically a web application, we can use the Chrome DevTools to inspect and do whatever we want. So this is going to be 400, that's going to be 300. Hello. I typed in hello twice, yeah. Okay, so that's fine. Let's like play about with, setting some relative sizes and stuff. So we have our 3 bits of text. So we want hello to be position absolute or relative. Absolute. Top 0. No, maybe it's relative. I have to set this to be position, like position relative. Can't remember my position styles. If any developers on, they can obviously help me. So this is no longer absolute. Okay, that's not even moving. Oh no, okay, this is absolute flex. So where's that coming from in our sequence? Let's get our flex 1 off here. Let's bring that back. How do we move these around? There's a way I did this before. We can style these in a way that we can control the positioning of them. Yeah, I think position relative should work. So position relative, and we're going to go top 100. Ah, okay, so pixels is working. So I can then, I think if I do Control Shift, so let's bring this, because the top is the middle of the video. So we're going to say that is going to be position relative minus whatever the hell that was. Because we're doing inline styles, we need to just clean up bits and pieces of it. Okay, so that's fine. So we're just going to copy the position and the top onto everything, and then we can move them down. So let's save this. a full stop. There we go. Let's save that. So they're all a little bit weird, but that is what we expect. When we jump back into the dev tools, we can then start changing their positions. So what if we bring this, up. So -10. And then I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say that's going to be plus, well, actually that's the wrong one. It's -10. And then we're going to say this is going to be plus 100. Okay, we're going to have to figure that one out. Let's increase this until we get it where it is. Okay, so that was 360. So now let's play our video. It's going to be crap, but sure. Hello, drunk world. But I wonder, can we use those functions to like apply animations based on the frame? Because we want to actually use the frame ability. So I want to see where is the kind of the off position for each of these. So that's at 360. We remember that, and then we're going to go to minus 470. So minus 470 to 360. So we can use the interpolate. Yes, we can use our interpolate to animate this, I think. So fire this in here, and this can reuse those hooks because we'll make them reusable. So we can take the frame, and then we can say our input range is gonna be, well, its duration in frames. So it's gonna be starting at 10, I think, and then going to video config duration frames. And our input range, so that's our start, and our end value. So our start is going to be minus 470, and our end is going to be 360. And it's not going to be opacity, it's going to be top. So now we can then apply that top to our inline style. And let's see what happens. If this works out of the box, I'll be very, very surprised. Yeah, that looks terrible, but what do those clamp things do? We could probably actually start this animating from the very beginning. Yeah, that looks awful, but it, you know. Actually, we were reducing around, so that was originally, so we're working off the opacity. That's our duration of frames minus 15. So why don't we just say minus 30, and that'll bring it in quicker, hopefully. Get to the bottom before the end of the video. Okay, we're gonna say, this is where like my video knowledge is not, yeah, okay, we've animated something scrolling down the screen and we can kind of see what's going on. So, right, this is a very basic example, and that took a lot of time just to get to. So now let's ramp it up a little bit, and we're going to be actually recreating the Star Wars intro text. So I already have a code sandbox that I'm ripping this off from. but we're going to recreate this using Remotion. Now this is obviously, like, they've just created it using CSS and HTML, but because Remotion allows you to play with the frames and play with the code, we can start fleshing things out. And I've done a little bit of the work ahead of time, so we're not going to be wasting too much time. And I'll try and explain through what we're doing as we're going through it. So first we're going to create a folder called StarWars. And then we need to create some components inside of there. So our main component is going to be kind of like our Hello World component. So we're going to say new. Do we go TypeScript file? Well, it'll have to be a TSX file. So it's going to be StarWars.tsx. And this should be like our main entry point for our file. So we're going to do import React from React. I could probably copy and paste a lot of this stuff actually from our other example. So we need our composition. So where do we go from here? We've got our composition. And then we need to actually load in our different parts of what we're going to build up. So, yeah, we got a composition. I'm going to try and inline edit as much as we're doing. So, I'm going to say const video. Because we're doing TypeScript, I think we can just infer hopefully all of our types. Well, first, actually, yes. So, I want to generate the text, but I don't want to like write the text, and this is where we can use the power of React. So we're going to actually use lorem ipsum. So we're going to do npm lorem ipsum and install this. So copy that. So I think we have a terminal in here, don't we? Yeah. And paste that in. Yeah. So paste that in, and then we can, well, that's that, import use effect from React. I think we need to import lorem ipsum as well. So we're going to import lorem. We'll grab it from the docs here. Save me having to type this stuff out. So we got lorem ipsum, and then we're going to generate some paragraphs. So, well, yes, we need to define our lorem ipsum first. So we'll copy pasta this. Nope, not in there. It's going to be after here. Yeah, we'll keep that as is. So our video component's going to be a component, but I think we're ignoring that for now. So I'll comment this out. So in here, yeah, we're going to create our, so we need to have our text held somehow. So we'll create some React state. We'll call this lines and set lines. Use state. Did that auto import? Oh, it did. Very nice. So our lines are an empty array by default, and then we're going to say use effect and run it once. Yes, so in here then we want to say set lines, and it's going to be an array, and we want to have, I think it's like 3 paragraphs, so we're going to do lorem.generate paragraphs, or generate sentences, because we're generating each block as an individual thing. So I think from it is before, yeah. What are you complaining about? Type strings not assignable to never suppress. No, What are you complaining about now? Oh, this is where TypeScript's going to fail me. Let's not type this then. F6. So we're no longer using TypeScript. Const remotion equals remotion video. So this is going to generate our normal sim, and then we're going to pass that in then as our default props. Into your hello, inside hello world is going to be video, which we need to uncomment. So let's do that. Yeah, so video, uncomment that. So then we can look at our video component. So our video component is where we're going to build up our sequences like we've seen in the other example. Need a drink. Oh god, that stuff. It's a fancy wine as well. Like, I paid 50 quid for a box of, well, a box of 5 half bottles of wine, which I didn't really know existed. They weren't that great. I think one of them was nice. It was the white, and I'm not a white drinker. Which I guess says if this is meant to be good red, I'd probably drink a really shitty red. Which isn't far off the truth. So, return our component. So, return our component, and we're going to return a div. And this also gets our props passed in. So lines, and then sequence. So we're going to have a sequence for our starry background, which I'm going to grab CSS for, and then a sequence for our scrolling text. So for this is all going to be always playing through the entire thing. So we can just use 0 and infinity for a lot of this stuff. Stars, and then crawling text. Okay, but now we need to create these actual components. So in our StarWars file, I'm going to say new, and I have no. So we're going to call this stars. Import React from React. Oh, I think I'm actually using React 17, so I don't need to import it, but I do it anyway. Const stars and return a div for now. Export default. I never, well actually no, I'm not going to start it either. I never export default, but I'm going to say export stars. And then we also need our, so this is going to be crawling text, our second component. So we're going to do the same thing. Crawling text. And we're going to just copy our stars component for now. Paste that in. Call this crawling text. And rename the component. God, I can't type. Crawling text. Yeah, so drop that in. So now we can actually import those components in here. So this is going to be stars, and this is going to be crawling text. And it's going to take in the lines prop. We're not actually using that at the moment. So let's see. This is all fine. This is all fine. Blah 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 blah. StarWars, and our index. It loads up video, which is that. So now, in our index, we want to use our StarWars video instead. So import. Is that returning, export, Remotion video, we'll call that StarWars at the end, because we'll have duplications. And that's coming from /StarWars /StarWars. Ugh, fuck this, man. I'm going to put it in and it'll autocorrect. Come on, import for me. Nope. Import from what's this complaining about? That file exists. There you go. I'll shut it up. So let's look at our Remotion player. Did it actually recompile or not? Can't resolve blah blah blah. Subtitle, hello world. This is where TypeScript's gonna fuck me over, I guarantee you. Can't find module hello world. Oh, I know why. No, I don't. Let's get rid of this. Fuck it. Let's delete it. It's still important, those. Yeah, that's what it is. So, how are we doing? How are we doing? How are we doing? Compile, complete, successful. Reload. Hello world. Not a lot going on, obviously, because we haven't done much. So let's look at what we need to do next. So we're flying through this because we're on the hour already. So we have a sequence with stars and crawl and text. Now when it comes to stars, we are literally copy pasta for this because I ain't got shit. I ain't got time to do shit like this. So I find this really cool. Pure CSS parallax pixel stars, which is already animating for me. And I don't think we need to animate the stars with the frames because, well, we don't. They're going to be a constant. So I'm going to grab the compiled CSS for this. Okay, come on. Come on. I shouldn't have to log in to view the compiled. Okay, so we have 3 divs. Nope, not there. 3 divs that we're going to go in here. And if we grab the CSS, so that's Sass, we could create a Sass file. Import compass. No, we're going to view the compiled CSS and we're literally going to grab it all. Do we need the background color? Yeah, we'll grab that too. There's a lot going on here, but there was a Sass function that was generating all this for us. Let's do select all. Yeah, that would have been smarter. So fix these, and then we're going to do new file. So we're going to create a new CSS file. And we're going to say stars background. Paste that in. And then import that into here. Stars background. Okay, we're going somewhere. Has that affected our video yet? Yep, we got our stars in the background. We're getting somewhere. So, now we need to do our crawling text. And again, we're going to rip some of the CSS out of this example. So that's what was complaining in this file. It's complaining about something. There's an error, or is it a warning? Fuck it. So then we need our crawling text to be built out. So just copy pasta this. And we're going to say hello drunk world, a new bottle of wine. And then, as we said before, because we want to do a little bit more than just like copy and paste and text, and there's like, let's drop some of our lines in. So we passed our lines in as props, and we should be able to say, so there we know that they're all p tags. So if I do lines.map line, and we're mapping, we're going to need the index for our React key. So then we can say return p tag with our line, and it's going to have a key which is going to be our index. So that's all good. Now this probably will look like crap when we go back to it. Or not even show the text because it hasn't been styled yet. For that, I'm gonna grab some styling I did before. Yeah, so this is the styling that came from the CSS tricks article. So we're going to create another style sheet. I'm going to call this crawling text styles. No, we shouldn't call it styles because it's a style sheet, but so a couple of stuff going on here, setting like relative props to where the text comes in and out, and then we're going to import that. And it's going to be / crawling text. Yeah, that worked. So again, it shouldn't still show because it should be off screen and then start coming in. And if you're watching along with a video now or after, like this is all going to be in a GitHub repo that you can check out. So then this is where we can start using some of our like Remotion niceness. So we want to start doing some animations with the text. So we're going to first like grab in the current frame. So we're going to say const FRAM equals use current frame. Auto completion is getting good at the minute. And we also need the spring utility function. I'm checking my notes here if you're looking at the side. So there's a couple of things we need to like animate that we'll figure out as we go. So the main one here is the actual like the block of this crawl div, because we want to start bringing this up. So first we want to control the top value. So if I say crawl, I'm going to say style. Now, if you're watching this and you're like, why are you using inline styles all the time? This is just like kind of like the docs they have, but because this is just React and HTML and CSS, this could be like a style component. So, you know, you could be passing these as props to a style component and managing it that way instead of just doing inline styling. But this is easier just to get off the ground and get going with. And that's the kind of thing, it makes me think about, like imagine you're like a video production company, and like you probably have like saved segments or saved like animations and things, and like whatever you use, like don't do videos in like Premiere Pro or something. You could build a style guide and a component library that would do the exact same thing. And because it's code, it's a living, self-documenting, shareable experience that like potentially open source your own like Remotion component library where people could have like kind of like in Lightroom, you have this idea of like, you know, presets from another person. You could, you know, build components that do animations based on the current frame and like the size of the video and do different things. So like there's a good possibility for a lot of this stuff, but let's jump back into the code. So yeah, we want to style our top value. So we'll just stick it at 0 pixels. Didn't know top had to be a pixel. I thought it could just be a number. So I'm going to set it 0 pixels based on our, what's it going to play on? Frame's not used, that's fine. Based on our crawl, the top is 99999. Let's jump back in here. What happens if I set it to 0? Save this, refresh this. Okay, nothing. But we will, so what we're going to do is we want to start bringing that number down. So we need to use our like spring to like smoothly animate our top for us. So we're going to say const top equals spring, and then we're going to start passing in our values. So we're going to pass in our frame, and then we're going to pass in our from, which is going to be 0, and then we're going to say our 2. So these are like our ranges. We're going to say -6000. These numbers will work out, and then we'll do our frames per second. FPS. Where's our FPS coming from? So we need to set that. So I've had it kind of, to get it to like animate based on the length of the video, I've had to like kind of hard code and play about with this. So I've created like an FPS number that equals 6000. So now top can be here. And this needs to be a template string. Come on, WebStorm, you know what I was trying to do. So let's save this. What does this get us? Is this right? I'm questioning myself. It's definitely sure. We should be seeing our text scrolling up at some point. Let me just check my notes. So we set our top value. And that should be bringing our scroll up. Frame from 0 to -6000. Our FPS is -6000. When we pass in our lines, what else are we missing here? If in doubt, let's start debugging it. So let's go in here and inspect our video element. Our section, we got our crawl title, we got our text here. So crawl is, why is our top value not overriding that? As you can see, we're not getting the top there. That should be getting an inline style. Have I got a compiler? Restart the server. It could have just shut itself. I was about to say I'm not using the component, but I am. Crawling text. Class name crawl. Style object. What am I missing? I'm missing something. Rename this file to crawling text. Should be okay for default. So this break on this. Nope, not PHP source. So let's look at this crawl. This should be getting an inline style applied to it, but it's not. Why is it not? Do we have any errors in the console? Oh, style property, there you go. Style property should not contain a semicolon. Try top, blah, blah, blah. If I looked at, aha. Let's jump back now. So let's see. Okay, we're still maybe breaking on something. Ah, there we go. So it's moving. It should be faster than that, I imagine. We can make that faster, can't we? Yeah, so this is where we need to start tweaking like what our composition is doing. Because that controls our total frames, yes. So if I increase my frames, so we're at 150, I'm going to bring this up to 600, which will be kind of a calculation off. Refresh this. A little bit longer. Okay, we're getting our scroll, we're getting our scroll, we're getting our scroll. Software update is trying, I think, the user. Cancel that for now. And maybe we'll try that again. Yeah, okay, so this is scroll, but it's not right, obviously. We need to tweak some other styles, so I'm going to pause that. So this is where our next kind of using of Spring is going to come in. So based on that CSS tricks, we need to like bring the values in. So we're like transforming it and doing like a rotate. So we rotate like X and Z to bring it in. So let's do that. So we'll grab our top, and then this is going to be our rotate value. Again, rotate, yeah, that's about right, because it's not being used. Frame, and then from, it's going to be 20, top is going to be 25. And then keep our frames per second the same, and then we're going to, again, grab this, and this is going to be our translate Z, or Z, or however you want to pronounce it. Again, this is going to be 0, and then the max is going to be minus 2000. Or 2,500. Don't ask me where I'm getting these values from. These just work. So then, in our styles, we're going to say transform. And we need to make a very complex kind of template string to manage this stuff for us. So we're going to say rotate X function. Then pass in our value. So this is going to be our rotate value, and then it's degrees, so it's DEG. Then translate the again function again, and it's going to take in our translate Z method, and this is pixels. So let's save this, refresh this. Oh, this is looking good. And we can see it's scrolling and it's kind of squeezing up as it goes up and up and up. And it's almost like it speeds up at the end. And because this is pulling in text from norm ipsum, this is technically dynamic. So every time we refresh this, so like that text is going to be different from this text, this and this and this and this. And this is kind of where like like Remotion is really good for building like video. But I think like one of the strengths here is the fact that it is React code. It's JavaScript, it's HTML, CSS. So like I had a really like, but I did a lot of research before doing this video, obviously, and I really figured out I had to copy and paste a lot of shit and tweak a lot of numbers to get this to work. If you're an expert at web animations and you really know what you're doing when it comes to CSS animations, you're going to excel in this. But also, if you're a developer, you're going to excel in this. So this example where like I'm using lorem ipsum generator, what if the video content was being pulled from a server, which Remotion supports? It supports fetching of data before it starts rendering. Like, think of the possibilities. Like, the one that comes to mind is a dynamic onboarding video for new clients or employees that you can literally generate on the fly, because it'll fetch the employee's name at build time. Because this all runs at build time as well. Like, it's not like the video fetches the data as it's being played, but like, you could run a build script over your employee database and have a video that has like, hey, Chris Loughlin, welcome to blah 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 Incorporated. These are our core values, and if your core values change every year, you don't have to re-record the video. You just feed the video the core values from props or a database or a server that has that information. The possibilities in there are really interesting, because like it's Node and it's JavaScript. It can be built in the server. So let's jump back into text. So we've got our video working. We've got our starry background. We have our yellow text that's scrolling and it's fading off into the distance. This is great in this kind of placement. But what do we do next? So the next thing we can do is we can actually then generate the video. So if we jump back, one of the last kind of getting started steps is to do npm run build. And this is what I love about it, like, it's npm run build. It's nothing complex. Obviously, the underlying command does a lot of other things, but side note, you need ffmpeg installed in your machine to be able to do this. I did this beforehand because I had to reinstall Xcode. So if I kill this, clear the terminal, and I can just do npm run build. And it's going to go through, it's going to start generating the video, and then it'll hopefully spit out a video file with what I had coded up. It's taking its, I'd say it's taking its time, but like, I've seen Webpack builds take probably twice as long as this, and we're on step 2 of 3. And it's rendering frames 4x concurrency, whatever that means. So we're gonna let this run. But as you can see, like, I did npm run build. There's nothing to stop me doing npm run build and like passing it environment variables. There's nothing to stop my components from fetching data from a server, fetching data from a config file. Like, imagine you had like as part of your product, you had like an intro video to like show the product off. Your video is now in code, it's versioned, it's collaboration. As developers are like submitting new PRs, they can rewrite the video, and then you could have a GitHub action that would auto generate your video for you. So like, as you create a pull request, it could probably auto generate the video, turn the MP4 into a GIF, and then insert that into the PR, and you would almost have like a video of like your system playing on. Thanks for the follow. I'm shit at pronouncing Kairos, I'm gonna say. Don't forget to say hi in the chat. But like, you could, this is, I think the part of this is like really cool for like, I want to build like, I want to make videos, and I want to use what I know already, and I want to hack together, copy pasted HTML and CSS from other sites. Up on here while it's working away. So I want to like copy and paste like HTML and CSS from other sites, and just like get some quirky little animations built. And like, I don't have to know about how to use like After Effects or these powerful like video creation tools. I can render a box using HTML and CSS, and then I can animate that box to move around the screen, and I can potentially now have videos as part of my like side projects. Where this gets really powerful then is building this into a pipeline, making this part of a CI/CD environment. Like, no longer do you have to like get someone to go through and edit a video in some video software. You can, feed it data from a config file and it'll regenerate that video a billion times. And it's running really slow now, but I think it's because I have a lot going on in that video. Yeah, so Karis, you mentioned like, could you have this handled by Jenkins? Yeah, that's exactly where I'm kind of like thinking towards. So like, for me, first thing jump to mind is like GitHub Actions, because it's free and it's free for open source. But if you have a Jenkins server and you're like producing media content, you run a Jenkins job and it probably pulls in, say, a config file, and you get a video out at the end. Building out a component, like, and that's why I find this really interesting. Build a component library for video, and then feed it in, like saying like, no, I need a video that has this, step-by-step guide. So like, if you had the whole idea of like, step 1, follow, log into the system and do blah blah blah. Step 2, log into the system, and like each of those steps maybe shows an image. What's to say that you could write a React component that takes in a JSON config that says, here's the steps, here's the title text for each step, here's the description for each step, and here's the image for each step, and you've built a kind of like an auto-generating induction tool, or tool that can like give information or instructions for workers or whatever. Yeah, so like if you're running like that's perfect. You're running like, if you run your own dev server and you have all these tools embedded in it, like you can like, like this completed now. That took a little bit of time, but like like we're just literally running that, so you can then pass in your own props. You can do whatever you need to do as part of your CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development pipeline. You could be generating videos on the fly. It's all configurable, and then because you know how to write this development code, like you can build and gather on from that. So let's open up Finder and check out our video. So this is the video that was created on React. Okay, we fucked something up there. I think the use effect probably didn't go correctly. I kind of like it. But I have a feeling that's why it took so long. Let's see, right? I have 10 minutes left of the stream. So any more comments or chat, fire away while I'm going to try and see if I can fix this. I have a feeling it's my use effect. Your Scottish backside, can read that. Oh, okay. Why is it not generating this out? So I'm gonna just grab them and move them out into their own array. You're saying even my Scottish backside can't read that? If you could open a little bottle of Buckfast and maybe be able to see clearly. I may have angered. We'll see. So now this is a const. We still pass it as a prop. But I think it's still going to happen because I think that the video keeps running. I'd rather drink Diddle than booking. Yeah, no, I've got out of that shit a long time ago myself. I have a feeling why it's doing that apeshit shit is this is always re-rendering every time, which it shouldn't be. Do I have to like think about how it renders based on? I don't know. We'll save that. Let's see what happens. So it's fine, that's playing through. So I'm going to try and build again. If it takes long, I'm assuming there's something different. Oh, video access. Come on, automatically overwrite. If it happens again, I think there's maybe a difference potentially between the process. Well, I gave you the flag to overwrite. There's probably a difference between how it runs it in the player and how it compiles it as a video. Could be potentially an FFmpeg issue with like machines. I'm running on I'm running on an M1 chip, and I have a feeling like that's probably not, you know, compatible enough yet. But we'll see if this is going to take ages, and I think we're running the same problem. But yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities here. Like, it's really cool to kind of see. So while that's running, if we pull up, like, this is the guy, Johnny Berger, who created it. And what I love is, like, every time he does like a new release or does something, he like uses Remotion as like a tool to enable him to do something. So like, brings up, like, he works at this company, and you know, the whole video was created using Remotion, and like other tools that they have. So like, this is obviously, you know, just components and images and GIFs and stuff built into the video that he can play about with. And it's actually like, it's been updating and stuff recently, like some of the new stuff where like you can have like video transparency, which I don't know if it's something is standard in the video world, where you like don't have to have like a black background. So I'm really curious to see like where this is going to go. Does it have a GUI aspect? Like, do you mean like GUI is like an interactive GUI, or do you mean like using like a graphical processor kind of aspect? If it's really like a GUI, like all you really kind of have is like this like player where you can see what's going on. Because it's, you know, it's browser based, you can like inspect and, you know, delve in and debug this way. Like, I wonder in sources will it bring up let's say star. Yeah, so you can like breakpoint on it and debug it. Oh, it's not running, so it'll fail. But yeah, like, there's not necessarily like a GUI, but I think because the GUI is like your ID, because you're just writing code. The Remotion player, which I've lost now because I'm building it. I have a feeling this is doing the exact same thing as it did before. I create a new tab. npm start. So yeah. Okay, yeah, so like this is what the player looks like. So you can like scrub through the timeline. Oh, is it gonna fuck it? I guess it's working. So you can kind of scrub through the timeline. You can't really modify or do anything in here. But I still think because you like you're writing code that generates a video, like this is your GUI. I guess for a traditional filmmaker, this would be a really change of scenery and how things work, because they might be used to kind of like drag and drop interfaces and like WYSIWYGs. But again, for like, I don't think this is really targeted at that market. I think it's targeted more towards like the, you know, the company that needs some infographic, you know, visual videos, and they have a room full of developers. You know, you can start getting them on board. Well, it's okay. So it's interesting. Yeah, so Kyrus mentioned like if you could make some edits in it because someone didn't fully understand code, but having a code generator would be interesting. So I guess there's nothing stopping you because it's code. There's nothing stopping you from building upon existing patterns that exist in code. So there's the idea of being able to like auto generate components, auto generate parts of your code base based on like just parameters. Like like I could write a command saying give me a banner with this text and this color scheme. And if you have like a kind of style guide component library, you could you pick out the kind of like the Lego blocks of what you'd be working with. Let's just finish yet. This is going to play the same. But yeah, so you can build off like code over the last like decade. Has got to the point where they want to bring someone who doesn't know how to code into the code environment. Like this idea of, actually perfect example. This idea of bring up the flags maybe. This idea of no code, where you don't write any code but you drag and drop, and in the background it's creating and wiring together code for you. This could be applied to this kind of utility. You could build your WYSIWYG editor over the top of this, like a kind of a Squarespace but for video. And being able to just generate videos on the fly by like dragging elements in, rearranging them on the screen. Under the hood is all written in this code. So there's kind of the low level that allows like a developer to build, and then the higher level, that someone could build a product and a family around this. It's a very interesting idea. I didn't think about the kind of no code application of this and how, because it's so lightweight, this could run. Potentially, I haven't tried this out yet, but I need to figure out if I can get it to run. If this could run in like a code sandbox environment, which is like completely on the server but fed through the browser, there's nothing to stop this being a Squarespace, WordPress like environment where you're just ticking boxes, typing input fields, maybe dragging and dropping, rearranging, and you're able to generate videos. So definitely interesting. This is gonna start spazzing out. Yeah, so I give up on the video, but it looked cool in the player. But yeah, thanks for the questions in the comments. Really cool ideas. I think there's a lot going on here. On the side note, I'm currently working on a SitePoint article for this. They'll be hopefully releasing soon with more detailed analysis into the different components you get, the different like API layers and stuff like that. So it's definitely something to check out. I'm going to be tweeting away at it. But thanks everyone for joining in, watching along. I hope it was as fun for you as it was for me.